Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of What I Watched This Month, where I'm going to be talking about the films I saw in theaters in June, July, and August. Without further ado, let's begin. I started out June with Sister Midnight. Pardon my French, but what the fuck? It's a delightfully strange movie. I walked in expecting nothing and walked out utterly confused, but amused. There were moments where I was simply laughing to myself at just how absurd it all was. I don't even know where to begin with this movie. First of all, it looks absolutely gorgeous, one of the best looking films I have seen this year. The colorful yet murky cinematography truly gives this thing a uniquely stylish look and feel. The sound design is excellent and the needle drops are certainly bold. The camera moves feel highly intentional, plus the odd blocking and staging works for its absurd tone. It's very reminiscent of the work of Lanthimos. I can't say I loved this film, but though I don't entirely fuck with every creative choice, I can't help but respect the hell out of it. This film is the polar opposite of a commercial film, the opposite of a mood lifter. It makes you ask a ton of questions and leaves you with zero answers. The average movie going audience will probably hate this, but I had a blast if I'm being honest. Yes, it did test my patience at times, but it's a miracle that something like this even got made. It's incredibly ambitious and it certainly has a unique vision behind it. I probably won't watch it again, but gosh darn if I didn't have one of the strangest cinema going experiences this year. The Life of Chuck. The life affirming movie everyone made it out to be. It's well made and interestingly structured. I wish I connected with the characters a lot more, but it's brimming with sincerity and heart. It feels like the love child of Spielberg and Zemeckis with how endearing and nostalgic it looks and feels. I wanted more Tom Hiddleston, given how infectious he is in this movie. I could honestly watch him dance for hours. Materialists. The streets are hating this film and I don't get it, man. I fucking love this movie. The performances are stellar, the film looks gorgeous, Pemberton's score rocks, it's incredibly entertaining and moving. I love the character dynamics and its study of modern love and dating. But the film primarily shines in its moments of simplicity, where these characters feel like flawed but sincere people, heightened by the super talented star cast. Even the direction is great. It cuts when it needs to, while also having masterfully orchestrated but brief one-ers that rarely call attention to themselves. The way it speaks about the timelessness of love through the callback of a beautifully simple shot of a flower is immaculate and poignant. This is definitely one of my favorite films of the year. Ballerina. It is not as good nor as exhilarating as the John Wick films, but it's quite a fun watch on its own. Ana de Armas is nice and the filmmaking is fine, but I just wish this film took more risks and did interesting things. The action isn't too bad and it certainly has its moments, but this felt close to being more mediocre than memorable. But still, it has the best use of a flamethrower I have seen in a film since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so there is that. Second Chance. This film is meandering and seemingly aimless, and I mean that in a complimentary way. It took a while for me to settle into this, but the second half is when it really clicked into place for me. I did not love it, but it's really nice to see something like this get made. The cinematography is really gorgeous as well. I am very glad I watched this. 28 years later. There are many things in this film that I have never seen in a zombie movie. New lore introduced with alphas, slow lows, and zombie hunting, skulls and spines getting ripped out of bodies. I mean, the way the film sometimes cuts through time to connect past and present, and those zombie kill cams breathed new life into me. But there is a specific scene here with two women that's handled with such empathy and sensitivity that this film cements itself as one of my favorite films of the year. Thug Life. So, this film got banned in my state, and since I went to Chennai for a brief trip, I figured it would be the perfect opportunity to catch this in cinemas. I was undeniably excited for this. Mani Ratnam and Kamal Haasan teaming up after 38 years when they made my personal favorite Tamil film, Nayagan. But I was surprised when the film received a negative reception upon release. This did in fact kill some of my excitement. But if it had released in my state, I still would have watched it to form my own opinion. And now that I have seen it, I am unsurprisingly in agreement with the public. I sadly did not like this film very much. It is a big disappointment. It's way too long. It has too many characters that I simply didn't care about. I felt nothing, and I couldn't care about what was happening in the first place. There's too much going on with little feeling. Huge plot points are unraveling, and I just couldn't care. I felt nothing. The sadly unmemorable A.R. Rahman score and stale filmmaking did not elevate the poor writing either. There are spurs of cinematic brilliance, mainly with regards to the blocking and staging of certain shots, but those are few and far between. I wish this excellence had been accomplished throughout, but by the final act, the film somehow manages to retain some of its supposed emotional core, but it was too late by then. The film was already a convoluted hodgepodge of various ideas poorly executed. I walked out of the hall feeling nothing. And I knew that this was going to be the case, especially because everyone had already told me that this film was bad. But it's a different kind of hurt to still walk in that theatre, hoping for the brand new Mani Ratnam directed and Kamal starrer to be even a little good. But sadly, it was painfully mediocre. The Phoenician Scheme. After having missed Asteroid City in cinemas 2 years back, I am so happy to finally have seen a Wes Anderson film in theatres. And I loved it. It's Wes Anderson doing Wes Anderson things. But he also goes to interesting places such as faith, capitalism, familial love, and existentialism explored via dreamlike and experimental black and white imagery. Wes truly is one of the finest directors working today. Plus, the film was a laugh riot, for me at least. His execution of visual comedy is impeccable, and though I don't think this film is as emotionally resonant as some of his other works, I still had a blast at the movies. Sitare Zameen Par. It surprisingly wasn't anywhere close to being as good as its spiritual predecessor, but I kinda liked this film. However, I think it does suffer from a few issues, mainly with just how badly it wants you to feel every emotion. It's certainly a heartfelt and sweet film, but I wish it didn't bash me in the head with it. Plus, its themes are spoken out loud frequently, along with some random subplots that either feel too unbelievable or don't even feel like they're part of the film. Even the score didn't often fit the scenes it played in, and I wish they showed some restraint and allowed us to feel the emotions. I think the film would have benefited from actual conflict. Whatever minor conflicts the characters face, they resolve very quickly. The characters' inner flaws, I wish they dedicated more time to. But maybe with a proper antagonist challenging Amir's character would have added some much needed stakes. Despite my many issues with the film, I still liked it. It's nice to see a good Hindi film that isn't hyper-masculine and extremely violent. The last thing I will say is that I'm very glad to see Amir Khan back to the movies. Elio. I didn't love this, but it's nice to see a new original Pixar movie. It is nothing special, but I had a decent time while I saw it. I really wish they marketed the film better though. Also, why the bloopers on YouTube and not in the theatrical version? F1. The summer fucking blockbuster of the fucking year. As someone who doesn't really have a vested interest in cars or racing, this was a thrill ride from start to finish. An adrenaline-filled experience that had me the edge of my seat at every turn. The audience has cheered and screamed in many scenes and at every cameo of the iconic racers. Leave it to Joseph Kosinski to work with a middle-aged movie star in an entertaining action movie comprised of fast-moving vehicles. And if I'm being honest, the more I've thought about this film since I first watched it, the paper-thin writing of the characters has revealed itself more to me, but the cinematic experience of watching this in IMAX is so fucking amazing that I forgive it all. This isn't my favorite film of the year, but most definitely one of my favorite theatrical experiences this year. Brad Pitt is just aura farming, Javier Bardem has never been sexier, Kerry Condon is a star, Hans Zimmer went challenges mode and composed a banger soundtrack that I've never heard from him before, Claudio Miranda is a master, everyone is firing on all cylinders to deliver the best fucking blockbuster of the summer they can possibly deliver. And now, for my favorite film that I saw this month. It's very tough given how much I loved F1 and how much I loved Materialists, but my favorite film of this month would have to be 28 Years Later. This is the ranking, and now we move on to July. The first film I watched in July was Jurassic World Rebirth. I did not expect to love this film, but I didn't expect to have this much fun with it. Obviously, it's nowhere near as good as the original Jurassic Park, but I really enjoyed this film. Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali and Jonathan Bailey rock. The film looks really gorgeous. The set pieces were thrilling, and at the end of the day, I'm just a guy who likes dinos. It's nothing amazing, but did I have a good time at the movies? Hell yeah. Metro in Dino. In an era of Hindi cinema where chest-thumping, testosterone-fueled, hyper-masculine and propaganda movies that glorify toxicity and violence are becoming the norm, It's so endearing to see a filmmaker full of love and heart like Anurag Basu bring back sweeping musical love stories back to the Bollywood menu. Superman. This film is the reason why I love and go to the movies. It made me laugh and cheer in a hall full of strangers and ultimately left me feeling whole and full of hope. I don't know why anyone would even doubt James Gunn because it's evident that he's probably the best filmmaker making comic book movies today. I found myself profoundly moved, and it's a great satisfaction of mine that this film lived up to the hype because I don't know what I would have done if this film wasn't as good as it is. And finally, it's just so nice to see a Superman movie in this day and age. It completely understands this character and what he stands for. Truth, justice, and the American way? Probably not. But we got this movie when we needed it most. In a world full of hate and suffering, Superman reminds us to be kind to one another. It's a film that says compassion is cool. Values like empathy and generosity aren't outdated. Instead, it's something we need more of. Sanyara. So, I had absolutely zero interest in this movie. I didn't even know that it was coming out or what it was about. But upon seeing surprisingly positive reviews from critics that I like and follow, I decided to give this a shot. And man, am I so glad I watched this because I think this movie rocks. This doomed romance absolutely destroyed me, shattered my heart, and almost made me cry. It's big, bold, loud, cheesy, sentimental, and unabashedly sincere. Some may call it cringe. Yes, it's a bit long and overstuffed. Those 2.5 hours felt like 5, and it's nowhere near perfect, but it's emotionally riveting. Ahan Pandey is an absolute star, and I cannot wait to see more of him. I walked out of the theatre terribly moved. This is one of the more pleasant surprises of the year. Fantastic Four first steps. Yeah, okay. I gotta say,
That's fantastic.
they finally got it right on the 4th try. I would have sued Marvel if they made another bad movie, but this film was straight up fire. I loved the retro-futuristic aesthetic. I loved how it leans into the inherent silliness of comic books. It's nice to see one of these films have actual style but also substance. It feels like a huge breath of fresh air to see a superhero film look and feel unique and different. Giacchino's score is an absolute banger, and it's been a while since I felt scale and stakes in these movies. This is kind of what Marvel needed to revive itself from its string of mediocrity. Yes, it's flawed, it occasionally looks ugly as the usual Marvel greyness and green screen backgrounds are seldom evident. We still haven't mastered the art of CGI babies. It lacks the impact I have felt from many other MCU outings. But here's the thing. Overall, it works. I had a really good time at the movies, and it's big enough for this franchise, given its current track record. With this film, Thunderbolts, and Superman, I'm not counting that movie, I think it's safe to say that superhero cinema is back. Pride and Prejudice. I am very glad to have caught a screening of this in cinemas because it completely won me over this time. Gorgeously shot, wonderfully acted, masterfully filmed. Seriously, the filmmaking on display here is fucking incredible. The beautifully orchestrated one-ers and the Spielbergian blocking and staging is impeccable. It is easily my favorite thing about this movie. I was simply in awe of how ridiculously well made it is. And also, one of the funniest films I've seen recently. The entire theatre was an absolute splits at the comedic moments of this film, of which there are many. The humor most definitely worked for me. But in conclusion, I walked out of the film enchanted and bewitched. As for my favorite film I saw, it would probably be Superman. But I love Pride and Prejudice almost as much. This is the ranking, and now I'm gonna move to the month of August. The first film I saw this month was The Naked Gun. It was a much needed laugh on a Saturday morning. People are saying it's the funniest film of the year. People are right. It's been a while since I laughed this much at a studio comedy. It runs at the brisk pace of multiple great gags per minute. Also, it's so funny that the Mission Impossible composers scored this film, given that there is a Fallout reference in it. It's such good fun. The Bad Guys 2. A good movie that becomes great, especially in the third act, when it goes God mode and felt like the train scene from Across the Spider-Verse during the rocket chase scene in this film, with its inventiveness and high-octane synth music, which made a lot of sense to me when I saw Pemberton credited as composer. Even the space stuff had some jaw-dropping imagery. It's tons of fun. The animation is cleverly stylish, the plot is deeply silly, in the best way possible, and it's really, really funny. I love these characters, these movies are a blast. I want 5 more of them, please. Dhadak 2. I was never really excited for a film titled Dhadak 2, but after hearing that it was about caste and due to the many positive reviews, I became curious. And I kid you not when I say that this is one of the best films of the year, and definitely one of the most moving. It is an incredibly important and sadly relevant film that highlights the evils of caste system and the cruelties the upper caste inflict on those they think are beneath them. It is also a powerful love story that believes in the power of love transcending these social boundaries, but also retains a sense of groundedness by showcasing the difficulties of loving someone from a different caste. This is the type of film that enraged me and made me reach my boiling point because it reminded me of just how vile human beings can be towards one another. It's beautifully made and the characters are fleshed out while also having their own agency. And it's fascinating to see this story told with a slight sense of masala sensibility, seeing as to how it's still a dharma film. But yeah, I left the theatre broken, but hopeful that maybe one day things can get better. Sorry, baby. I kinda loved this film, but I definitely need to see it again to properly process it. I saw it on a bad day in my life, which clouded my judgment a little. It's beautifully shot, and its seemingly emotionless tone could alienate a few viewers, but it completely works for this film and its subject matter. It deals with themes of sexual assault very subtly and holds back from any extreme emotions. It was far from boring, but I plan on revisiting this soon to form a more well-informed opinion. Together. I saw this during a morning show, and it was such an interesting choice to see it at that time of the day. It's a really enjoyable and fucked up film. It's gorgeously shot and performed. It had its moments of shock and fear that had the audience surprised and disgusted throughout. The editing and sound design are top notch, and its interesting concept reveals itself to be an allegory for something I did not expect but ended up loving. I'm not going to spoil it for you because I would want you to experience that ending for yourself. Weapons. Everyone has been raving about this movie and they're absolutely right. This movie is a blast, especially while watching it in a packed theater. Its filmmaking is slick and its storytelling structure isn't new at all, borrowing from movies like Rashomon and Pulp Fiction. But it makes the film so much more enjoyable to watch. I don't think it's perfect, but seeing it with an audience at night really was something. I love that the film isn't afraid to be flexible with its tone, and it knows when to have fun with itself without sacrificing its established tone or the gravity of it. It's a very well-made crowd pleaser in every sense of the word. It is one of the more pleasant surprises of the year. Coolie. Am I disappointed? Yeah, but did I have a good time? I mean, yeah. I don't know what has happened to Lokesh after Vikram. His movies lack focus. It feels like they're mostly just dependent on cameos, star power, and nostalgia, and not the storytelling anymore. This isn't a bad movie. I guess it's just fine, and that's really sad because Lokesh is a filmmaker I really like. He's got a strong voice and vision, and he's very much capable of making a really good movie. Mediocre or possible aren't the words I would expect with a Lokesh Kanagaraj movie, but it seems that tide has shifted recently. I definitely like things about Coolie. It looks good, Anirudh's score is far from his best, but it's pretty cool actually. The action sequences are occasionally riveting, and the hype/aura moments seldom work. But man, this was an exhausting watch. It has the usual problems of a Loki film. It's overstuffed, thematically unfocused, the women barely have character, and it's way too long. Towards the climax, I have been bombarded with so much excess violence, heart-pounding music, and maximalist testosterone that I left the theater mentally and physically drained. It's so dense on plot but not on character. So much happened, but I didn't feel much of anything. Whatever excitement I did feel was purely fueled by the star power of Rajni and the euphoria of an energetic audience. But the storytelling itself is incredibly weak and empty. I'm really hoping Lokesh gets back his groove with his next film because he's definitely capable of so much more. But either way, watching this on opening weekend in a packed theater full of excited fans is really something. War 2. I don't have much to say about this film. It is bad, utterly sauceless. I surprisingly had some fun despite the film being generic as fuck and frequently dumb as hell. But it could have been 5 stars if Hrithik and NTR ended up together as a couple. Nobody 2. This was so much fucking fun. With Daniel Bernhardt as a mini-boss, the addition of a dog, and an action set piece in the Hall of Mirrors, this franchise further cements itself as a spiritual sequel to the John Wick movies. Yes, it's nothing we haven't seen before and is often generic, but Bob Odenkirk kicked some serious ass and I left the theater a happy man. A solid way to spend 90 minutes in a weekend. Bring her back. This was genuinely one of the best movies I have seen this year. Apart from it being very well made and terrifyingly scary, what stands out is that it's also one of the saddest movies of the year. Yes, it has elements of horror and is gruesome and bloody, but it's primarily about grief and learning to cope with or not cope with the loss of a loved one. Everything that happens in this movie, no matter how scary or gory, happens for this sole reason. It stems from the pain we feel about losing someone we love from our lives and our inability to accept and move on from that. I know that this isn't at all a new concept for a film like this, but it does such a good job at making me care about its characters that with whatever went down in the third act, I cared. I was emotionally invested in what was going on, and by the final frame, I was left devastated. Plus, the clever shot choices acted as several Chekhov's guns, which just goes to show how well this film has been written and directed. This film solidified that 2025 has been the year for indie horror movies. Loka Chapter 1 Chandra. Malayalam cinema continues to prove why it's leagues ahead of every other Indian film industry. Despite the intriguing trailer, I hadn't planned on watching this honestly. But after hearing the positive word of mouth, I decided to give this a shot. And dude, this thing fucking rocks. I have many thoughts. First of all, the film is gorgeously shot, the sound design is really good, it's incredibly fun and funny. The packed theater I was in had a laugh riot. It's even got some really clever and visual gags. The filmmaking is really stylish with its very well executed match cuts, transitions, and even a split diopter shot. I admire its slow and patient approach to building its lore. The cameos were a fun addition to the story as well, and it's so cool to see a masala film get mythological fantasy right. The film is far from perfect, however. It's overly long, messy, and can get a little exhausting with the violence and bloodshed. It's certainly not devoid of problems, but they don't seem that prominent in the grand scheme of things. Because the main thing I want to talk about is the sheer joy of seeing the crowd going crazy and cheering for a woman kicking ass on screen. In an age of hyper-masculine violent movies, it is so refreshing to see a commercial action film be led by a woman. To see the usual slow-motion action scenes and loud BGM be composed for a woman. That, I believe, is this film's greatest accomplishment. And not just that, but seeing the bad guys be corrupt cops and misogynistic evil men, the men that are mostly the heroes in the cinema we see today, be shown as the villains that they really are. I went into this mostly blind and walked out incredibly entertained. I have no idea how the hell this film's budget is just 30 crores, but I am so happy to see it become a box office hit. It is one of the more pleasant surprises of this year, and I am very curious to see where the universe goes here onwards. The Roses. Again, don't have much to say about this one except that I loved it. It's so fucking funny. Benedict and Olivia are literally perfect casting. The final shot plus cut to white had the entire cinema shocked. It is probably the most diabolical use of happy together that I have seen in a film. It was a much needed laugh at the movies. Hridaya Purvam. An unexpected surprise, but a welcome one for sure. This was really fun and funny, and I'm glad I watched it with a packed audience. It's well made, La Layton is spectacular, it is occasionally cleverly written, and yeah, it's got some problems. The film is tad bit too long, and the film goes to some very weird places, but despite it all, it's a very moving piece of work. I walked out of the theater with a big smile on my face. It is as heartwarming as everyone says it is. Now, it's very hard for me to pick a film that I loved in August, given that there are so many great ones. But maybe in terms of personal impact and just how shook the film left me, I might have to pick Dhadak too. But yeah, either way, this is the ranking. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for what I watched next month in September.